Welcome to the StockOdds podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Noble. Our listeners know that trading is challenging. They want ideas. They want to know when and how to hedge. They want to increase performance and lower risk at the same time. We answer those requests by focusing on the odds of the trading game. Operate like the casino, not the uninformed player. Trade with a positive expectation and insulate yourself from those blind sides the market whacks traders with. We're here with Cris Doloc, Ph.D. He's a director and advisor with StockOdds. He is an accomplished quantitative and computational scientist, team and platform builder, and currently teaches at the University of Chicago Financial Mathematics Department, case studies in computer for finance. Cris has been the Chief Technology Officer of Terra-Nova Financial, the Head of Valuation Infrastructure at the Chicago Trading Company, and the founder and principal of Quantras Research Limited. I'm here with my co-host, Rob Friesen.
Hey, Cris, welcome to our podcast interview with traders, and we really want to hear your story. I consider meeting you last year in May one of the highlights of my year. I can honestly say that it's just been an amazing experience to get to know you, read your book, and just interact and pick your brain about things. So what first attracted you to the stock market?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. You are way too kind, Rob. It was a pleasure for me as well to have met you a year ago in Chicago at the trading show, and I'm very excited to be on board with StockOdds. My attraction to stock market, it's a very interesting story. I was prepared to work on a very different field of endeavor. I grew up and I was educated as a physicist, as a nuclear physicist, and I would say by the luck of the draw, I ended up working actually in Wall Street for more than 2 decades. Actually, thinking back, I believe that what was really attractive to me was the novelty of the field, was the ability to use problem-solving skills that I have acquired during my decade or so of working in research, scientific research. And it was mainly, a combination of quantitative math skills and programming skills that I believe at that point, and this was more than 20 years ago, that could be very instrumental to be successful in a trading environment. And last but not least, to tell you frankly, I was always very, very thirsty for competing, trying to study whatever I could do. So that was probably very, very important too.
Well, trading is certainly an individual sport, so welcome to the game. Do you think that's what prepared you for your first trade, or can you think of anything else?
The first trade didn't come so early in the game. I mean, I started working in this field in 1999, mainly as a programmer, as a quantitative analyst, and as part of my daily job was to assist traders, our clients, our customers, and I was shadowing. I did a lot of shadowing with traders. And I realized that this is a very, very exciting field of work. And by being able to understand what they needed from me, by being able to provide them with the tools that they had a need of, sort of prepare me to kind of get into their shoes and get into their skin and try to understand what they wanted to do. So I think the first time I traded was in 2004, so it was like 5 years into my career in finance. I was working for a hedge fund here in the Chicago suburbs, and I was working with one of the traders. He came up with a trading idea to me. I implemented it, and then he suggested to sort of share into the profits, and this is how I started my first trading endeavor.
Oh, fascinating. What other aspects of education and the various occupations that you've had that kind of give you this underlying knowledge for this industry, right? Because it's certainly not for everybody, and you've been in this industry now for a long time.
Yeah, I believe that, if you look back 25 years ago, most of the traders actually had we're not really very astute when it comes to the quantitative side of it, the programming side of it. It was just an innate ability to deal with the markets, to kind of have some sort of probabilistic mind, try to kind of guess an outcome of something that was not really visible to everyone. But I guess I was part of this generation of quantitative trading or traders that started 20 years ago. Again, people coming from a very different background, mostly coming from hard sciences, that brought a new way of looking at the same problem, tools that were not really available or widely available to traders. So bringing those tools within this world of finance and trading was really helping people that didn't really have that innate or probabilistic minding and guessing and sort of democratized in a way a field that was quite narrow, I would say. I believe people like me coming from those kind of hard sciences, math and physics and computer science, are probably more numerous today in this area than, the usual MBA type, the person that has more of this, I would say, business mindset. Trading nowadays, and it's been a while, it's been more than a decade, it became really a technology game, and
right.
bringing more and more of this type of quant programming mindset, it helps, just because we have to deal with so much information, with so much data nowadays.
Right.
The ability to automate those tasks and not trade just one name, but maybe survey maybe hundreds of names and trade in tens of them. It's something that doesn't come that easy and could not be made possible unless you have some sort of underlying technology background.
Right. So you're mentioning these factors. This is very relevant to why you would have found some success in this endeavor. Is there anything else outside of just the straight analytical skills, data science, mathematics, quantitative abilities? Anything else you can attribute success comes from?
What I'm saying, mathematical background and computer science are all tools, right?
Right. Okay.
On top of that, you also have to have something innate, which is this, not just ability, but thirst to be able to solve problems, to not be afraid of new situations, to be able, the ability to adapt to new situations, this kind of ability, could be formed, could be educated, but I still believe that there is a big portion of this is a talent that has to be sort of inherited or sort of present within you to be able to attract you to this field. So again, it's a combination of tools, and this tool could be math, could be computer science, could be statistics, could be things that you could acquire along the way. But also there is something else that is not as tangible and may not be the outcome of some sort of educational process that people have to have in them. And again, it's the role of the people that are doing selection, either training managers, risk managers, whoever is in charge with selecting this kind of talent, to really pinpoint whether this is present or not within the individual that we are supposed to recruit and educate in this area.
Right. So these traders seem to be in these particular areas a lot more advanced than say traders of the past, which probably had a lot more discretion instead of empirical, quantitatively tested data. But what derails these advanced traders? Like, what factors contribute to people not being successful in your view?
Looking back at my career, and not necessarily in trading, but in everything I have done, both in technology and in education, I think there are three very important elements that contribute to the success of everything we try to do in life. Number one is vision. What would we envision for ourselves to be our path, right? So have a feel of the idea of looking forward like 5 to 10 years into the future. Do I have a vision? Do I know what path to choose and why is we're taking this one versus the other one? So vision is number one. Number two is the discipline to follow a program, to follow a set of rules, to follow something that was proven to be successful for other individuals. And number three is the patience. Sometimes you hit right patches, whether in trading or in life in general, and the ability to go over that hump and just lower your head and push forward is something that makes a difference between being successful versus not.
Perseverance for sure. I mean, because and the other thing is the mindset to be able to deal with the inherent standard deviation that comes along, where you're doing the right thing, but you're not getting the right results. This is really, it takes a lot of mental strength, even with advanced, sort of algorithmic traders now, because the algos don't always persist in their ability to perform, right? Or what happens when the regime changes because we've had a massive, global event like recently.
Yeah, so it comes down again to this ability to adjust. Never expect things to last forever. We have to be. I read about 2 years ago a very, very interesting book written by someone that was teaching computer science at Harvard, a very well-known researcher in the field of artificial intelligence, that basically spent most of his career in trying to understand the parallel between the biological world, how biological entity works, versus how computer science, computer systems are developed and supposed to work. And the whole thing was built around adaptation. How well do we adapt to the environment around us? And what does it mean from like a computer science perspective? Computers are a lot less equipped than the human brain to deal with complexity and changing environment. But they deal that through data. If we have the ability of having access to a lot of data that could cover a variety of what we call regimes, then our algorithms that we build based on this data will be able to adjust in a way or a very similar way that the human brain or the human entity or a biological entity does. So I believe that there is such a powerful idea to compare the way that we human operated for like literally millions of years versus how we try to emulate that ability within the computer. Computers are more recent, right? They've been around for, I would say, 150 years, but in the kind of current form we know it, it's more like 70 years.
Right.
We are still a far cry away from operating like humans operate, but this is kind of the goal, to be able to adapt and adjust. And when we find a good strategy, the first thing we should think about it is that how long this is going to fit well the current reality of the world that I'm operating within, right? This is never going to last forever. That's why it's always good to have a variety of strategies available, to create a system where actually I can use concurrently a multitude of strategies and use some sort of voting system. We call it in machine learning a system where like on an ensemble learning, where multiple strategies could be put at use to solve the same problem, to address the same markets, for example. And once we have more actors, more agents trying to come up with a solution to the same problem, when one of them doesn't guess as well as it used to, the other one may compensate for that. So having a diverse portfolio of strategies,
right,
having access to a variety of data, which is nothing else but giving us more access to the environment, to the surrounding world, to be able to capture whatever is coming from it. It's going to help us to do a more seamless transition between what you mentioned as the current environment versus the previous one.
Right. Well, on the education side, there seems to be an abundance of noise. I mean, lots of educators, lots of stock market teachings and things like this. From your perspective, is there a lack of education in this trading community?
Yes, I believe that it really comes down to defining what really education is, right? I mean, is education meant to be a transactional business? Is this education a business at all? That's a question. Should education be a business? Should be the goal of educating someone having as many disciples as possible just because you want to increase your bottom line, or should be the outcome of the educational process, meaning making those students of yours successful in the future. And this is actually where we fall short. And I have the experience of teaching at one of the most prestigious universities in the world, University of Chicago, in the financial mathematics program. In my opinion, unfortunately, this is becoming more and more like a transactional business where one side wants to have as many students as possible, the other side wants to get as easy as possible a diploma, and this is a lose-lose game for both sides, just because the ultimate consumer of this process, education, is actually the business that is going to hire those, quantitative traders, quantitative analysts, risk managers, and so on and so forth. There is less and less inclination, and I've been on that side of the fence for 20 years. I interview hundreds of people and hired many of them. The inclination is not to look at the diploma, but is to test how those candidates are able to solve a specific problem. So now the choice is, am I going to go and pay $100,000 for a diploma from a very prestigious university and then brag around saying, hey, I'm graduated from this program, therefore you have to hire me? Or should I actually concentrate on hitting as many conferences as possible, talking to as many people as I can, looking at blogs, communicating with people to kind of really have a feel of what the most important problems at hand are and how can I solve them? And this is actually where I believe, in general, the higher education system falls, and even if we go to corporate training and so on and so forth, we should not consider education as a transactional business, but as a way to transmit information and knowledge to the people that need to get to a certain level to be able to cope with their new jobs.
Is it a deviation in the sense that the focus has become more on rote learning rather than on hands-on mentorship, in a sense that you're really imparting something to somebody, you're helping them change the way they think?
Yes, I truly believe that, and I'll give you an example. Do you believe that it's easier to solve very well 2 or 3 problems, or to solve reasonably well 100 problems? That's kind of the conundrum. If we teach people 25 courses during a program that lasts for 9 months, and at the end of the day, they will forget that very, very quickly after the final exams, versus giving them 2 or 3 very good, solid, well-known problems and ask them to work in collaboration with the instructors, with their colleagues, with the firms that they're eventually doing internships for. I think the latter one is a little more powerful and is going to have a much more lasting impact on the way those guys get prepared for their next assignment.
Well, you've tried to, present some real interesting discussions in some of your books. Can you describe one of your most recent books?
Yes, actually, I spent 2019 mostly on working and putting together some material that I had created in the last, decade or so. Initially, the goal was so I wrote a book that was published by Wiley in New York, a very prestigious publishing house, on applications of, the title is Application of Computational Intelligence in Data-Driven Trading. The initial goal for the book was to provide our students from our program with a much wider view of what's expected from them when they get into the real world, right? Everyone, is in love with this idea of AI and machine learning and data-driven this, data-driven that. But we definitely we spend very little time with our students in teaching them really basic things about what those terms really mean, right? Is this really like a magic potion that you just have and the next day you become 20 years younger and you'll be able to do this and that? No, it's not that. It's just a way to address a problem. It's like a set of rules that you have to abide by when you solve a problem. And initially, the goal for the book was to be very didactical in nature and try to be very pedagogical and try to educate our students how to do different things. And then once I started getting into talking to my editor, the idea was to actually enlarge a little bit the audience and also address like people that are already working as traders, quantitative traders, analysts, and so on and so forth in a field that they not be necessarily educated on. This idea of combining problem-solving skills with tools available, it's something that I was thinking for a very, very long time. And all the content, all the materials that I ever developed for either teaching at university level or in a corporate training setting was guided around this principle of the ability to solve problems. How do you develop it? How do you enrich it by learning new tools? And nowadays, you hear more and more traders and people that are able or willing to or eager to learn Python. Python is a great tool for accessing large amounts of data and to be able to extract information and knowledge from it to put it to good use in a trading strategy. Learn more about machine learning, try to figure out what is AI and how buzzy this word is and what's reality and what's not. So this separation between what's practical and what is not yet, it was kind of was the driver behind this book that I have written. And besides the book, there are a lot of articles. I published a lot in a Wilmot Journal and some other journals. It's very, for me, it's very interesting to get in touch with a specific group of people, like traders in this case, and try to adapt technology and knowledge that usually was meant for people working in academia or advanced research to bring it to a level that is directly applicable and useful for people that don't really have to have, this high level of education, but have the need for applying this kind of technology or tools to their problems. And actually the world of trading is just ripe for that.
Right. Well, I read it and I was really thrilled with it. And I think it has many applications across industries, and, teaching people how to think, how to solve problems is just spot on. So I endorse it wholeheartedly. And I just wanted to know if you had any final thoughts for traders, people embarking on their journey, people that are, trying to find profits in the market, maybe trying to adapt, maybe what they were doing isn't working, or, maybe they just want to add on more strategies. Any thoughts for these groups of people?
Yeah, this is a very, very packed problem. I mean, the question.
It is.
It is like in life. You have to be able to. First of all, trading is not for everyone. That is for sure. If people that want to get into trading, they want to get into trading because they want to get rich. I think that's not I don't think that is the good driver or the best driver or the best motivation for. I think people that have a sense of enjoying novelty, enjoying being competitive.
Even creativity, yeah.
Totally, absolutely. People that believe that they have a certain level of quantitative programming skills. This is really something new. As I said, it's probably coming into the last decade or so, and it's more and more prevalent into the world of trading. So the ability to use either the tools you have acquired during your education, plus something new, because everything nowadays the life cycle for any type of new technology that comes into the market is about 2 years. It used to be 20. 2 decades ago, it used to be 20 years. So some technology could be used for 20 years, and that thing decreased from 20 years to 2.5 years. Very possibly, very soon, we will have to be in a cycle of continuous learning. So whatever we have acquired during our school, education versus what we're going to continue to acquire through our lives has to be coupled with, we have to have our antennas up and try to always understand what is new, what is important, what is required from us, and combine what we have learned, what we can learn with what is required from society, and I think trading is just an amazing place where people that have the spirit of creativity, competitivity, people that believe they have the right quantitative skills to compete. It's always about solving a problem. And this is probably the most complex problem other than biology. And we are far away again from understanding how the human brain works and how really simple biological entities work. But other than that, this is probably the most complex problem there is, because this is a herd problem, right? We are, when we are talking, I'm acting against the market, or you know, my competitor is the market, right? I'm competing against the market. I'm competing against possibly millions of people. And this kind of social interaction networks and the kind of very complex things that happen when 2, 3, 10, a million people interact, this makes a very, very difficult and complex problem to it. And the only way to get out of it is adaptation. And adaptation comes with, as I mentioned, with having a vision, having the discipline to implement that vision, and having the patience to go through the end of the process without, looking too much at the sort of intraday P&L, but looking at really what my goal is. How long should I be in this trade? Have I been enough in this trade? Is it time to get out? Is it time to kind of add more to it? Having this type of sense of goal and the discipline to follow it, but especially the patience to go through all the pains, I think it's very important.
Right. Well said. Well, I really appreciate your time here with us today, and I think there's a great packed information in there for everybody, and a lot of good takeaways. So much appreciated, and thank you for your time, and we look forward to working together more in the future. So
thank you so much for the opportunity.
You're welcome. StockOdds is a stock market database and education platform. Visit stockodds.io for more information.